Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Rock and Roll James YouTube channel. Today, my special guest is Seamus Cox.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
How long did you do the Kiss thing, man?
We did the Kiss thing for about 2 years. It was a lot of fun. And in the meantime, I got to meet some guys in India. I actually live in Indiana. So when I say that, people are like, you live in Indiana? No, I'm closer to Chicago than most people that live in Chicago are. I'm 13 miles from downtown or something. The state line is, you know.
It's right there.
Yeah, I'm close to downtown. But I got to meet some great guys in Indiana, and we started a band called Terminal Fix. And Terminal Fix was something. I'll send you some of that music. It was different. It was Linkin Park before Linkin Park. We had a DJ. He was amazing. And at first it was awkward. Like, where do I come in? Like, what do I do? You know, like that kind of thing. But we really worked around it. I learned a lot playing with him because everything we were then writing was bass and drum driven. And I had to base it off of his, you know, his beats, whatever he's providing me, that kind of thing. So I learned a lot electronically. I was starting to learn more of like the digital side of music. That band Terminal Fix, man, we were a big fish in a small pond. Being the area, you know how it is. Some people on the east side of the valley are not, they never go to the west side of the valley. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they just never do. It's kind of like that in Chicago too. People don't venture out to other areas. So we did. And we went down and we played like the big places. We played the Double Door. We played all the big places. Opened up for everybody. Yeah, Anthrax, which is kind of ironic because Stone Heavy, we opened up for Anthrax
as well,
and got to know Charlie really well. That I shouldn't say really well. It was, you know, backstage really well. That kind of conversation where it was like, man, look up and he's like standing there watching us play, and we were blown away. And then the next thing I know, he's on the other side of the stage. And so anyway, fast forward a few years, I'm in Terminal Fix, and we're playing with Anthrax. And I walk out and I was like, yeah, I was in Stone Heavy. I had a mohawk now. I didn't have long hair and any of that stuff. So I had a mohawk, and he was like, oh, wait a minute, with the Misfits, and you guys were the band that over, yeah, you know, so it was kind of cool. Played with Mushroom Head. I mean, we did a lot. Nice. Anyway, then we decided, once again, this is me telling people, be the big fish in the big pond. Be the small fish in the big pond first. But I told those guys, I was like, you know what? I just got a thing that Ozzfest is looking for bands. They're going to have a competition. You submit, come out. You know, if you get chosen, then you come out and you perform and open. It's basically an open cast call. And I was like, we're doing it. We don't have money for flights, and you know we didn't have money. Yeah, we're going. I'll figure it out. So I figured it out. We went. There were thousands of bands.
Damn.
Thousands that were there. And we submitted, and you know, it was kind of intimidating. We were standing in this line. It was like a line like you'd be waiting for concert tickets, you know, like that went on for days, you know, back before you couldn't get them online.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm old. Anyway, and all of a sudden, like, you know, the Osbournes all pull up in a limo and get out, and they're like waving, and you know, we just happen to be in that spot in the line where they happen to be coming out, and just totally blown away. But here's how they decided. They had record producers sitting at tables with like boom boxes and stuff, and assistants, and you know, and they would put your cassette in, they'd play a track, they'd hit fast forward, they'd play a track or CD or whatever, and skip, okay. And you're like, okay, what? That means okay, you can move on. And we're like, all right, you know. I don't know what they would tell people if they didn't move on, but it was very intimidating.
I don't want to move on.
Right? It it was very intimidating. So we moved on, and we kept moving on to the point that all of a sudden we were like, wait, we need equipment? Like, we brought our guitars. We didn't know, like, our DJ, he needs his records. And so we went out at like all this stuff, this whole process was taking 14, 16 hours. We had to take these military tests because this was all for MTV. You know, they want to know if you're crazy. Mm-hmm. You know, they want to, they didn't want a lunatic on the show. So it was like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. We were out in the middle of downtown LA. No maps, trying to find a record store that was open, so we could get the DJ because we had to perform in the morning, mm-hmm. in front of, like, at the Sony studios, like in front of all these executives and things like that. So like we're flipping out. We find a record store. Andy finds his albums. Like, the chances of that, dude, this record store, think about it, it's a record store in LA. Mm-hmm. The records went on for miles.
Yeah.
And he found them. And so we went, and the next day we performed. And I think
What was the venue you all performed at over there?
It was, I believe it was
Was it a bar, a club?
No. It was at, it's a rehearsal space for touring band. Before a band goes out on tour,
yeah,
they'll go and rehearse in one of these. Sony owns the studio, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of the name of it right off the top of my head.
So it was at a rehearsal studio?
It was at an actual, record company.
So how did it go when you all went and performed?
It was amazing. I mean, and I think they did things to us to see if we could fight through it. In other words, they gave us a sound check, and the sound check was great. And then we start playing, and all of a sudden, things weren't great. Mm-hmm. And we kind of realized that what they were doing, they were looking for, are we all going to like look at each other? Are we going to freak mm-hmm. out? Or are we just going to play through it? Well, we just played through it because we're so used to being in time with a DJ and the clicks and all that. It was, we just played through. Next thing I know, this is all like, we don't know if we're checking out of our hotel. Our flights have now changed. Like, every day is like, we don't know if we're going home or staying. Mm-hmm. We had no clue. And every day you'd get a call from an assistant that would tell you, like, yep, you're back tomorrow. Be here at 9 a.m., blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, here comes the call. Yeah, we want you guys to come back. You guys are down. We're at the finalists now. We're at the final 20. And we're like, I have goosebumps now. Like, it was amazing. Like, to even get that far, mm-hmm. And not even know what the show was about or what they were doing. We had no clue. Just knew that Ozzfest was involved, and it was a battle of the bands to get on to Ozzfest. Mm-hmm. That's it. So, go back the next day, and they wanted to interview our lead singer and our guitar player because our guitar player was 19. And the singer at the time, I'm not sure, but he was in his 30s. And I think maybe they had some concern because nowadays that's not as big of a deal because nowadays, like, even bands like Godsmack and all that, they're in their late 40s and, some early 50s. So, like, age isn't a thing anymore. No. At that time it kind of was. So, and they were also going to send a 19-year-old out on the road. And so they came back and they declined, which was fine. Like, I think at first we were disappointed just initially, but we were like, no, man, like, this just reaffirmed, like, what we were doing was right.
Yeah. Well, in our business, we go through a lot of ups and downs, but it's the adventure that we really, let me tell you, there's a lot of bumps, man, when you're in the business, in the music business, and there's a lot of disappointment, a lot of sacrifices. But I think it's the adventure that we, really look for, at the end of the day. Of course, at that moment you feel that emotion, but at the end of the day, you're like, wow, who else could have done this? Right. There's so many bands because he said 1,000 bands, and they were in the top 10, out of 1,000 bands. So there was hundreds of bands that felt their disappointment a lot earlier in the game, man.
Yeah.
So where are you at right now, man?
So right now, well, Bones had called about it, not necessarily just doing a reunion show. It was almost the time was right.
Bones is living in Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're living where?
I'm in Chicago, and I've been bouncing back and forth between Chicago and Nashville.
So you're living in Chicago, man, and you're going to Nashville. What are you doing in Nashville, man?
Well,
what's going on there?
So
I know Nashville has a ton of musicians, man.
Oh yeah,
it's like Hollywood with actors. You know, you go to Hollywood and you get into the convenience store. The clerk's an actor. You go get on the taxi. The cab driver's an actor. You know, it's just like that in Nashville. It's musicians. they're all
everybody. You go to the coffee house, no matter where you go, whoever is giving you service is a musician.
And a lot of heavy metal artists and celebrities, and they've all moved. Musicians have all moved to Nashville because it's real easy to find musicians and studios and studio
work.
musicians. And work.
Musically, there's a lot of work in Nashville.
That's where all the connections are at. You know. When it used to be Los Angeles back in the early 80s, and then in the 90s it turned into Seattle, Washington. So Nashville has just become the mecca of musicians. Austin always was known as the live music capital of the world. Yeah. I think Nashville's pretty much
it's getting there. The difference I would say though between Nashville and Austin, because Austin's just it's a different animal because you have so many different styles of music in Austin, whereas, Nashville, it's a cover band hell. Mm-hmm. It is.
In other words, in Austin, there's more originality.
Yeah.
And Nashville, there's more.
See, I don't want to say that because the originality. The nice thing about Nashville is it's a cool place if you're going down there for music, and you go find these little what most people would consider a dive bar, and you can walk in and you can see some of the most amazing people, and I'm going to pop one out of my head right now. Went to an open mic on Music Row. They do it on Sunday nights, and man, if I could remember the name right now, it's the only live music venue on Music Row. How's that? Mm-hmm. You drive by it, it's very unassuming and that kind of thing. So on Sundays they do songwriter night, basically, but it's 3 chairs and 3 songwriters, and it's one song, and they tell a story about how they wrote. And
I like those, man.
It's amazing. So I'm going to throw a name out because I was blown away, and this is one of those times. I've been there a few times on a few Sundays and sat through all of, the entire evening of musicians. But her name is Sinead Burgess, and holy cow! Like I didn't even need to sit and watch her. I turned my back to her, listened to her. It was just that.
Magical.
Yeah. And
it's one of those times,
She's something. Keep your eye out on her. She's really, really, really talented. But a lot of those people are songwriters. So that's the thing about Nashville. They're not necessarily. They're not looking to be rock stars. Mm-hmm. They're looking to get their songs
recorded,
picked
by
up,
a rock star.
Yeah. So a lot of what's really cool about that Sunday night gig is that some of them aren't the best singers, and they're not trying to be.
But it's the lyrical content.
Yeah, it's the story they're telling. Some of them are amazing
stories. Substance. Nashville wasn't as popular as far as music is concerned back then as it is today, because like everybody and their mothers that are musicians are living in Nashville now, man.
So I actually, those open mics, the other one that I do is at a brewery, Wild Rose Brewing, and through those open mics, a friend of mine, Jack Adams, came out and brought a guy out with him, and it was real busy that night. I had a lot of musicians that want to play, and he's like, "Yeah, this is my friend Rod. He's from Nashville. He'd like to get up and do a couple songs." And I felt bad. I told Rod this after I talked to him. I was kind of like, yeah, go, yeah, it's fine. Go ahead. He can use my guitar, because I had so much going on. And about a week or 2 later, like he went up and played, and while he was playing it, I stopped and was like, "Oh, man, guy's pretty good, right? I mean, looks like a rock star too." But and I go back to whatever I was doing, sucked up in my little world. And about 2 weeks later, Jack texted me and said, "Hey, that guy that came out to see you, he was wondering if he could get your number. You know, he'd like to talk to you." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, cool." So sure enough, Rod calls. You know, he's texting. We're talking, and it just escalated. It's kind of funny. You and I have listened to this kind of stuff our entire lives. You know, he's an artist that has a record deal, and he's got these people and those people, and you know, right, and you're just like, yeah, because I've been doing this a long time. It's just like, yeah, okay,
we've heard it all.
I'm in if I like your music. You don't need to, you know what I mean? Like, I'm in if you don't need to sell any more than that, right? If it's something I believe in, I'm in. Yeah. And you want that, because if I'm in, I'm in. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, yeah. So as we're talking, I'm like, YouTube, you know, I pull them up. I'm like, Rod Black. Boom, Rod Black. I was like, oh. Now she's long gone, like a tail light fitting in a heartbreak song. She's long gone. I was blown away, and then I started listening to his songs, and I was like, I can't believe I'm bopping my head to country music right now, man. What's happening to me? I'm getting old. Uh-huh. I learned something really cool. Country music, they have these things called band directors. And I was like, what does a band director do, you know? Yeah. Well, it's somebody in the band that's like a band leader that like all of the little things that waste time and, you know, parts that somebody isn't sure are, like, they know the parts, they know everything, like, and it keeps everything very organized. And that was something I was like, oh yeah, this is happening. Any band I'm in now, we're, you know, and it doesn't upset people, and everybody's very professional. I learned a lot about professionalism from Brian and Rod, and you know, even L.
The band director basically, you know, handles the band, while the star, the singer, the artist handles the rest of what he's got to do, so he doesn't have to deal with that stuff. But it's kind of a different concept, because I've spent most of my life, you know, in chaos. You know, like I function in chaos, kind of a thing. And this is like, it's not chaotic at all. Chaos is when there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. That's chaos.
In a band, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
And that's the usual stake in bands. You know, when you start a band, right away, okay, it's democratic. We have to make a decision. But basically, there should always be one last word and one last decisive decision made by a person, and that's the band director.
Yeah, and it's nice, man. It's
makes your job a whole lot easier.
It really does. It really does. And you know, the other thing is, I learned from them like how to chart music. Like, I would tell anybody, if you're going to go audition for a band, or even if you're just learning songs that you want to play on your own, charting. Writing down the riffs, the notes, and where they are in relation to lyrics and things like that is incredibly helpful, because when you start writing it down, then it's automatic. It's in there. All of a sudden, you're not relying on anything anymore, you know. And that's something really cool. You know, listening to those guys talk all the time, because they're in the business. Like Phil is really busy. Phil is a drummer. Man, he plays with anybody and everybody. Yeah. Including he's like the kind of like house drummer on the show Nashville.
Yeah. You send him some sheets and then he comes ready to play.
Yeah, like he's like, and it's really cool. It's a really cool thing to learn. That professionalism is a lot different than rock and roll. It is than rock.
I appreciate you hanging out with me, man. Seamus, it's a pleasure to see you again. It's been 25 years since I last saw you. You didn't have any hair, facial hair at all. Neither did I, man. No. You know? But man, I wish you the best of luck. Yes. And are you on social media, Instagram, or anything?
I am. I actually have a website. If you go to tattoobeardedfool.com, obviously tattooed, bearded, and I'm a fool.